Hello everyone, it's Tori, and today I'm finally going to be discussing my Victober reading plans and other plans, and I am so excited. Many of you know, and I'm not going to dwell on it this time, but many of you know this summer has been a bit on the rough side for me, and so I have just been so looking forward to Victober. I have, even more so than usual, I would say. I've been loving all of the TBRs I've seen so far, and I just am so ready for this. I just desperately need it, to be honest. So, if you don't know what Victober is, it is a readathon. Its full name is actually Victorian October, so it is a month-long readathon where we read Victorian literature. So that is anything published between the years 1837 and 1901 in the UK, so during the reign of Queen Victoria, and it is just a wonderful readathon full of wonderful people. Kate Howe called it an online festival, and it really is, because it's not just about reading the books. People are making videos, people are cooking food, people are doing all sorts of things in relationship to the Victorian era. Some people read nonfiction about it. The main standard to participate is to read something that was written during the Victorian period, so that is key, but there's so many other things you can do to add to your experience. Watching adaptations, of course, or just other films that are set during the Victorian era. It's just all a delight. The hosts of Victober this year are the same as last year, I believe, yeah, they are all the same, but they are Kate Howe, Petra Yu, Katie from Books and Things, Roz from Scally Dandling About the Books, and Marissa from Blatantly Bookish, and they all do a great job. This is the second year for Marissa, Roz, and Petra, and it's so fun to see them back. And then Katie is the original mastermind behind it, and Kate Howe, I believe, has hosted it every year as well, so it's just so much fun. I love seeing their videos and discussions, and often they'll have personal book clubs that are associated with Victober, like Kate Howe is doing an 1860s book club where you read something specifically from the 1860s, and then she's having a special Zoom discussion to chat about those books. I won't be participating in that just because the summer's been rough, as I've said, and I'm just kind of slowly coming out of that. So I didn't want to plan too many specifics for October beyond my TBR, which we'll get to in a moment. But yeah, she's doing that. Katie from Books and Things has been hosting a Dickens read-along where they're reading Dickens in chronological order, and so this month it will be David Copperfield, so a lot of people are reading that. Kate Howe does a collaboration video every year that I participate in, and I'm so excited to see everybody's answers to that particular prompt that she gave us. No spoilers, of course, but yeah, it's just going to be fabulous. And yeah, I don't want this video to be too long. I apologize. I'm just rambling on about how much I love it, but I'm so excited. Each of the hosts this year chose a different prompt, so we have 5 different prompts. You of course don't have to follow these prompts, they're just more if you're interested in that, but I like to do what I can every year and see if I can get those prompts in. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to remember whose prompt was what. I believe Petra's challenge is this first one, and that's first to read a book told in first person, and for that I'm going with The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This is a collection of short stories about Sherlock Holmes, and I believe most, if not all of them, are told from the perspective of Watson, who is Sherlock's right-hand man. I'm sure most of you know who Sherlock Holmes is, but in case you don't, he's a very famous detective from literature, very odd and a drug addict, but he's also very intelligent and very perceptive, and so that's how he solves his crimes. And Watson is a doctor who kind of just ends up somehow becoming roommates with him, and then they become friends and partners, and they solve these crimes together, and it's great. It's been a long time since I finished the second novel within the Sherlock Holmes series, so I believe the books go A Study in Scarlet, and then The Sign of the Four, and then this collection, and then the next one after it is The Hound of the Baskervilles, and I'm pretty sure those 4 are the only ones that are actually Victorian. The rest were written after Queen Victoria passed away. So I'm getting close to the end of Sherlock Holmes as far as Victober goes, but yes, I would love to listen to the audiobook for this. I have the big long amalgamation of Sherlock Holmes audiobook that was done by Stephen Fry, so I'll be listening to that for this. This next book I'm having count for 2 of the prompts, the first one being Katie's prompt, which is to read a book that's about the modern woman, or the New Woman movement, that's what it's called, which I believe started primarily in the 80s, the 1880s, and then moved forward from there. And then Marissa's challenge is to read a new author to you. So I decided to go with, for both of these, The Daughters of Danaus by Mona Caird. This is one I've had for a couple of years and I just haven't read it yet. It's one I like every once in a while to do some searching for Victorian literature that's maybe not as well known, just so I can spread my feelers out to a variety of different things, and this is one that came up and really interested me. I'm not completely sure what it's about, but I believe it does follow two sisters who follow different paths, and I believe one of them wants to live like an artistic lifestyle. Oh, she wants to become a composer in Paris. And that's all I really know. That's all I feel like I need to know, especially when it comes to Victorian literature. And Mona Caird will be a new author to me, so I'm very, very excited to read this. This next book is the one book that I was like, I know for sure I'm going to read this Victober, for reasons that will become apparent as I talk about it. But it kind of was hard to fit into any of the prompts, so I decided to go with Kate Howe's prompt, which was to read a book that features like a stranger in a new land. And this book has sailors in it, and so I feel like there's some aspect of it there, but I don't know how central that idea is to the story, so perhaps it won't cover this. But I do have another book I'll mention in a little bit that I also intend to read. It's a short story actually that I think may follow that a little more closely, so either way this prompt will get covered. But anyway, the book I'm talking about is Sylvia's Lovers by Elizabeth Gaskell. This is the final full-length Gaskell novel that I have on my TBR, and I'm so excited to read it. Sad because I'll be done, but she has so many short stories, and she has her biography of Charlotte Brontë, so I still have more to read from Gaskell. But as far as her full-length novels, this is the last one I have to read, and that's why I really wanted to read it this year. I wanted to get it done, and then at the end of the month I'll film a Gaskell ranking video, which will be a lot of fun. So yes, I fully intend to read this, and it will probably be the first thing I physically read. Like I said, Adventures of Sherlock Holmes I'm listening to on audiobook, but this one will be my first real physical read, and I'm so excited about it. And the final prompt is Roz's prompt, of course, which is to read a book that focuses a lot on class. Of course, most Victorian literature has something to do with class in some way, but there's a lot of books that focus more on it than others, of course. And the one I decided to go with is one that it's far past overdue that I read this. That is Barchester Towers by Anthony Trollope. Now, I don't know how the class is portrayed in this, but I know Trollope always has something to do with class in his books, and it's usually pretty central, so I don't know much about this. I read The Warden like a year and a half ago. That's why this is so overdue, because I should have read this ages ago, and I just didn't, and I decided to, I just kept putting it off and putting it off. I was kind of focused on Dickens novels more than this, and then last year my last Trollope book was Lady Anna, and I was so excited to read this that I really wanted to. And so I read that at the end of that last year, and I just wasn't a huge fan of it. No, beginning of this year, but either way, I wasn't a huge fan of it. And so it kind of killed my excitement about Trollope a little bit. Not so much that I didn't want to read any more of him, I just haven't been as much in the mood. But I think I'm finally ready, and I know a lot of people say this is their favorite Trollope novel, so I have high expectations. I think this is the one. Every year I usually choose one that I'll read just a few pages a day throughout the month until I finish it, and I think that's what I'm going to do with this one. It's a little bit shorter than the books I usually do that with. I think it's like just over 500 pages, so yeah, usually the ones I do that with are like 800, 900, almost 1,000 pages. So hopefully that means I'll have more time to read the other things during the day, as I only read a few pages of this on the daily. So anyway, all that to say, I'm very excited about this one, and we'll see how class plays a role in it, because I don't know exactly how it's going to in this one. A couple of extras. I wanted to grab a couple of books that maybe felt a little different as far as genre, just in case those end up boring me or I just have some time. Both of these books aren't terribly long, so they would be shorter reads in between, which I think could be beneficial to keeping me going throughout the month. So the first one is Three Men in a Boat by Jerome. This is a comedy about three men in a boat and the shenanigans they get up to, I guess. I've heard great things about it, and it's really, really short. It's like not even 200 pages. So yeah, definitely a good one to throw in there if I end up feeling like I need something just to make me laugh. The other one I have is actually in line with Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, but it could be like a physical read if I decide to do that, and that is The Lot and the Lady by Wilkie Collins. It's been a while since I read a Wilkie Collins. Actually, well, it's been like a year. year, but I've really wanted to read more Wilkie Collins. I feel like he's an author that I just enjoy. Like, I've just read his two most famous, The Woman in White and The Moonstone, so I don't know how I'll feel about his less popular works, but I feel like his work is always like 5 stars, but in the sense that like I really enjoy it, but I'm not in love with it. Like, I would never say Wilkie Collins is my favorite, and I would never say either of those books is one of my favorite Victorian reads, at least not now. Perhaps on a reread of Woman in White, I've thought that maybe that could be a favorite, but I really enjoy them, and I have a good time, and so I've heard good things about this. This is kind of one of the earlier detective novels, and is actually a lady detective kind of situation, so I don't know if she's actually a detective, though. I think she may just be a woman who is acting as the detective of the plot rather than being a literal detective. But anyway, either way, this could add a little bit of fun sensation to my reading if I get bored of kind of the more contemporary-esque kind of literature that the realistic literature that the other ones are. So there's the main list, but I do have, so if you don't know, I run a podcast with my friend in which we discuss spiritual principles that are found in various types of literature and film, and we just, chat about those books and films, and it's a lot of fun. It is Christian based, so just so you know, in case you're interested, like, I would love to have as many people listen as possible, but I do recognize that's not going to be for everybody. So there's that, but we do have a few things we plan to discuss this month. We've started posting every other week instead of every week like we were doing because it was just way too much for me. But for Victober, she's never really participated in Victober with me, but she knows about it. I've talked about it a lot with her, and she is a big fan of Victorian literature as well. So we've decided to do only Victorian literature for October, our October episodes, minus the first one that will come out on the 2nd. That will be Mockingjay, because we've been going through the Hunger Games series and we wanted to wrap that up before we continued forward, and since it's within the first couple days, we thought, it's fine. But anyway, the other 2 Mondays that are in the month of October, we will be discussing some Victorian literature. So the first one we have is a short story that neither of us have read, so I'm very curious to see how it goes. It will be coming out of this Gothic Tales by Elizabeth Gaskell's book, which I have not read any of the stories in this. I think I started Disappearances like a couple of times and never actually finished it, even though it's like 10 pages. But all of that aside, we will be doing The Poor Clare is the one we decided to read. It just stood out to us, and I'm so excited. I'm excited to read a Gaskell short story, so we'll get a little extra Gaskell this month on top of Sylvia's Lovers with that, and I'm very excited about that. Oh, and I should mention that I think that one may work for Kate Howe's prompt, The Strangers in a New Land prompt. I don't know for sure, but based on the little bit I've read about it, I feel like it's possible that we're going to have some movement into other countries and stuff. So anyway, that's a possibility for that prompt if for some reason Sylvia's Lovers I don't feel like works well enough. And then the other book we're doing of course a full-length novel, because why would you do Victorian literature and not do a novel? But it is also one of our favorite books together. I think it's her favorite book of all time, she would say. I would say it's very, very high on my list, and that is Wuthering Heights by Emily Brontë. So I'm not going to read through this whole thing because I have read it 3 or 4 times, and so I know it well enough. I don't feel like I need to like actively read the whole thing, but I will be skimming through it to mark things and stuff. I need to get a copy of it that is able to be a little bit more marked up, I think. But anyway, yes, this one will be one of our episodes, and I'm so excited. I'm so stinking excited. We did Jane Eyre a few months ago. When we first started the podcast, we actually wanted this to be our first episode because not only is it both of our favorite books, but also our friendship was started over this book in a lot of ways. So we worked together, and I brought up Victober because it was around that time. I think it was like slightly after that she got hired onto the job I was already working. And so we were talking about Victorian literature, and I brought up Wuthering Heights, and she was like, oh my gosh. And then we just went off, and the amount of conversations we've had about Wuthering Heights is astounding. And honestly, a lot of them have been very similar, but we just love talking about it. And so I'm so excited to do an episode with her discussing this book because it's so central to our friendship, and I just love that, and I'm so excited for that. So if you're interested in that, I will of course leave a link to the channel where we have our podcast on YouTube, and then you can also see it anywhere you listen listen to podcasts as well. It's called God in All Things, and it has like a white album cover. There's a few God in All Things podcast options, but ours is like a white cover, and it's Tori MacArthur and Kariana Kendall. So yes, go ahead and check that out if you're interested. Like I said, it is Christian based, and I know that's not everybody's thing, but if you're curious about our discussion, I will say most of the discussion is focused around the plot itself. That's how we follow our discussion, is just going through the plot, and then we'll bring in scripture and quotes and other ideas and stuff associated with the principle, but we'll also make commentary about some things in the plot, because why would you not when you're talking about literature and film? So anyway, so that's what we're doing in October, but in December we are doing kind of a Dickens December kind of thing, and the one we decided to go with, as far besides A Christmas Carol, we'll be discussing A Christmas Carol, of course, and then the other one, the other Dickens novel that we decided to go with is Bleak House by Charles Dickens. I read this last year actually for Victober and loved it, and she hasn't read it, and so I was like, girl, like I want her to read David Copperfield. I kind of wanted to read one I haven't read yet because I just want to expand my Charles Dickens experience, but I'm tired of not being able to talk to her about Bleak House. I feel like this is the one I most want to talk with her about, and so I was like, okay, let's do Bleak House, so you are forced to read it. So I'll be probably starting to listen to the audiobook for this after I finish The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, so this will be my other audiobook during the month. I definitely probably won't finish it, but I will be listening to it, and it is Victorian, so I thought I'd mention it here. So that is that. Briefly going into some other plans, so videos coming out. I'm going to give you a brief list of basically some videos I'm going to be making, not in any particular order, but some ones I'm pretty sure I'm going to try to do are a top 10 Victorian works of mine, of course. I don't think I've ever actually done that, and I feel like part of that has been I just didn't feel like I had read enough Victorian literature to do that, but now I feel like I think I'm in a place where I can do a top 10. So I'm going to be doing that. I want to do a video about adaptations that I'd like to see of Victorian literature, whether that be a redo or just an updated version or just completely a new one that hasn't been done. I of course will do the Rank Gaskell video that I mentioned earlier. I will do my future Victorian reading plans. Every year I've done a video where I discuss some books I'd like to read in between Victobers, so I'll be doing that again. I also every year try to do more of a discussion, kind of analytical almost video, not super analytical, but just a discussion of tropes and things in Victorian literature, and this year I've decided to go with love shapes. The love triangles, the love squares, the love pentagons that show up in Victorian literature. Of course, many people know I love Hardy, and he has a lot of that, but there's other authors that do as well, and so I want to discuss some of that. And then of course I will be doing vlogs. I actually have a couple of long weekends that I planned in the month. I actually asked off work so I could enjoy some Victorian reading for longer weekends. So I have a 4-day weekend that's like the 13th through the 16th, I think. It's that weekend, so the second weekend in September if you don't count the first, which is on a Sunday. But anyway, yes, that second like actual full weekend of October I will be having a 4-day weekend, and then I have a 3-day weekend the very last weekend of the month just to wrap things up. So that is my plan, and I'm very excited about it. So other things going on, I do want to watch some adaptations, of course, films and miniseries. There's two I'd really like to get to, but we'll have to see what happens. I really would like to watch Bleak House, but I may need to wait to watch that until after my friend has finished Bleak House so we can watch it together. The one I want to watch is a mini series that was released a few years ago, I believe, and it looks great, so I would love to watch that once the time is right, but we'll see. Like I said, we'll see if that happens in October. Then I would love to rewatch the North and South miniseries. I know a lot of people love it, and I have not watched it. I think I watched it when I was in like junior high, and then I haven't watched it since, and I liked it, but I hadn't read the book yet. I wasn't as invested in Victorian literature yet, so I would like to go back and rewatch that. So now that I've read the book and have a better idea of things potentially going on. So yes, those two I would really like to get to that I haven't seen before. There's of course all my favorites. Like Far from the Madding Crowd is a major one. Little Women, of course, is American, so it doesn't quite work, but I feel it's during the same time period, and so I wouldn't mind watching that. There's Tess of the D'Urbervilles, the miniseries, which I really love. Vanity Fair, that's on Amazon Prime, I really love. So there's a few options, but there we go as far as that. And then this year, I would really like to cook something Victorian, so I actually ordered this Dinner with Dickens cookbook that I'm really excited about. Recipes inspired by the life and work of Charles Dickens, and each chapter is a different novel, or a couple novels, I think. Anyway, and so I want to make something with my roommates, and I think we're going to make some sort of beef something, but I will let you know what happens. I'm not really sure what's going to happen. There's kind of a lot of seafood in it, which is not my favorite thing, but there's some other options as well, so I'd like to make at least something from this book. And yeah, that's pretty much everything. I probably in my first vlog will have a little haul. I did order 3 additional works of Victorian literature that have yet to come. I just did it this past week. I pretty much every year buy a few new Victorian things, Victorian works specifically, and I just didn't this year, and mostly because I've been so concerned about how many books are on my TBR and wanting to get that down, and I'm not doing a very good job, unfortunately. So I was like, no, I don't want to do that, but it felt wrong. So I picked up 3, 2 of them are plays, so they're really short, and then the last one is a full-length novel, but it's more of a lesser known one, which with me finishing Daughters of Danaus, I won't have very many left on my TBR that are like the lesser known ones, and so it's kind of a replacement. Plus with classics, I'm a little less concerned about getting more classics than I am about getting more recently published fiction. So anyway, this video is so long, but I'm just so excited, so I just had to ramble and just go off, so I apologize if you prefer short videos. You probably didn't watch this if you do. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below your Victober plans, as I would love to know what you're reading, if there's any other plans that you have that you're excited about. If you're on YouTube, let me know if you have any fun video plans, because I love watching Victober videos. And wish me luck, because I really think I have too big of dreams for this Victober, especially with how I've been feeling and my emotions going up and down, but I feel like if I really dedicate myself to this, it will be a wonderful, wonderful month for reading, for just thinking about life and history, and it will just be amazing. So I hope you are having a wonderful day, a wonderful week. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!